Welcome to Cozy Mystery Readings. I'm Eleanor. If you're joining us for the first time, we're all about diving into classic-style whodunits that transport you to another era. Today, we have a special treat. An original Hercule Poirot mystery in the timeless style of Agatha Christie. Titled Killer on the Amberlight Bridge, this is a long-form story designed for those cozy evenings when you want to unwind with a cup of tea and a puzzle that keeps you guessing. Chapter 1. Arrival at Amberlight. The autumn of 1927 draped the English countryside in a veil of mist, where secrets seemed to linger in every shadow. Amberlight Estate, nestled on the banks of the River Thames just beyond London's bustling heart, stood as a monument to Victorian grandeur. Its spires pierced the fog like sentinels, and its ivy-clad walls whispered of a time when empires were forged over tea and ambition. At the estate's edge, the Amberlight Bridge stretched across the river, a narrow, ancient structure of weathered stone, its arches crowned with amber-hued lanterns that glowed faintly, even in daylight, like the eyes of some watchful spirit. The bridge connected the estate to the sleepy village of Eldridge, a place where gossip travelled faster than the post. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with a moustache as precise as his mind, sat in the back of a sleek Rolls-Royce as it rumbled over the bridge's cobblestones. His gloved hands rested on a polished cane, and his sharp eyes, green as polished jade, scanned the scenery with quiet intensity. Beside him sat Captain Arthur Hastings, his loyal friend and chronicler, whose cheerful demeanour contrasted with the gloom of the day. Hastings adjusted his scarf, peering out the window as the car swayed gently. "Mon ami Hastings," Poirot said, his voice clipped and accented, "this bridge, it is most intriguing, no? It is both a passage and a barrier, a perfect setting for a drama of the human heart." Hastings chuckled, his breath fogging the glass. "You're always seeing mysteries where I see only stone and water, Poirot. Though I must admit, Lord Ambrose's invitation was rather cryptic." "Matters of intrigue," he wrote. "Sounds like more than a weekend of bridge and brandy." "Précisément," Poirot replied, a faint smile curling beneath his moustache. "Lord Ambrose is a man of wealth and influence, but wealth, it often attracts the shadows of envy and deceit. We shall see what secrets this Amberlight holds." The car slowed as it crossed the bridge's midpoint, where the amber lanterns cast their eerie glow. The Thames below churned sluggishly, its waters reflecting the grey sky. Hastings noted the bridge's isolation, no other crossing for miles, and the estate's gates loomed ahead, flanked by stone lions weathered by time. The chauffeur, a taciturn man named Jenkins, who doubled as the estate's butler, steered toward the grand entrance, where torches flickered in defiance of the encroaching dusk. Lord Reginald Ambrose awaited them on the steps, a robust figure in his mid-50s, his handlebar moustache rivaling Poirot's in grandeur. His tweed suit strained slightly at the seams, a testament to his fondness for fine dining. "Monsieur Poirot! Captain Hastings!" he boomed, his voice carrying over the crunch of gravel. "Welcome to Amberlight. You've arrived just in time for cocktails. Come, warm yourselves by the fire." The great oak doors swung open, revealing a hall adorned with portraits of stern-faced ancestors, their eyes seeming to follow the newcomers. Servants bustled, taking coats and offering warm towels. Poirot, ever fastidious, adjusted his tie and surveyed the opulence: crystal chandeliers, Persian rugs, and a grand staircase that spiraled upward like a promise of hidden rooms. In the drawing room, a fire crackled, casting dancing shadows across mahogany panelling. The other guests were already assembled, and Poirot's keen gaze catalogued each with the precision of a jeweller inspecting gems. Lady Evelyn Ambrose, the hostess, stood near the hearth, a vision in a sapphire gown that shimmered like the river at twilight. In her early 40s, she possessed a fragile beauty, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease, as though she carried a secret too heavy for her delicate frame. She greeted Poirot with a practised smile, her hand cool and trembling slightly in his. "Lady Evelyn," Poirot said, bowing, "it is a pleasure. Your home, it is magnifique." "You're too kind, Monsieur Poirot," she replied, her voice soft but strained. "We're delighted to have you." Next to her lounged Victor Ambrose, the couple's only son, a handsome man of 25, whose Oxford education had left him with a penchant for fast cars and faster debts. His dark hair was slicked back, and a cigarette dangled from his lips with studied nonchalance. He eyed Poirot with a mix of curiosity and defiance, as if sizing up an opponent. "Heard you're quite the sleuth," Victor said, exhaling smoke. "Hope you're not here to sniff out my gambling losses." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Monsieur Victor, I seek only the truth, whatever form it takes." Across the room, Mr. Harold Blackwood, Lord Ambrose's business partner, pored over a ledger with the intensity of a man facing ruin. A wiry figure in his late 40s, his spectacles gleamed under the lamplight, and his fingers twitched nervously. His shipping empire, intertwined with Ambrose's steel ventures, was rumoured to be on shaky ground, with whispers of financial misdeeds swirling in London's clubrooms. He glanced up, meeting Poirot's gaze briefly before returning to his papers, as if they held the key to his salvation, or his doom. Miss Clara Thorne, the family's governess and a distant cousin, hovered near the window, her plain dress and severe bun doing little to soften her sharp features. In her 30s, she had once tutored Victor and his long-departed sister, but now served as Lady Evelyn's companion. Her eyes darted about, lingering on the bridge outside, as though expecting someone or something to emerge from the mist. Poirot noted her nervous hands, twisting a handkerchief, and wondered what tied her so tightly to this family. Dr. Elias Markham, a local physician and old friend of Lord Ambrose, completed the party. A widower in his 60s, he carried himself with the quiet authority of a man accustomed to life and death decisions. His medical bag rested at his feet, a constant companion, and his lined face spoke of burdens borne in silence. He and Ambrose had served together in the Boer War, but Poirot detected a coolness in their exchanges, a hint of old wounds, perhaps a betrayal or an unpaid debt. Jenkins, the butler, moved silently through the room, offering drinks with the precision of a metronome. Though not a guest, his presence was inescapable, his eyes missing nothing. Poirot filed him away as a potential observer, if not a player, in whatever drama was to unfold. Dinner was a lavish affair in the dining hall, where candlelight gleamed off silver and crystal. The menu boasted roast pheasant, truffled potatoes, and a Bordeaux that Poirot deemed acceptable. Lord Ambrose held court, his voice filling the room as he recounted tales of his industrial triumphs. "The Amberlight Bridge," he declared, gesturing toward the windows, "is more than a crossing. It's the lifeblood of this estate, connecting us to the world, yet guarding our privacy. No one crosses without my say-so." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "A bridge, it is a curious thing, no? It invites passage, yet it can also isolate. Tell me, Lord Ambrose, who guards it tonight?" "Jenkins, of course," Ambrose replied, waving a hand, "and the village gate is locked by the constable. Impenetrable, I assure you." Lady Evelyn's smile faltered, and Victor drained his glass with a grimace. Blackwood coughed, excusing himself briefly, while Dr. Markham's gaze lingered on his host with an unreadable expression. Miss Thorne said little, her eyes fixed on her plate. As the meal ended, a thick fog rolled in from the Thames, swallowing the bridge's amber lanterns in a ghostly haze. The air grew heavy, and the distant rumble of thunder hinted at a storm to come. Poirot sipped his coffee, his mind already turning. "Hastings," he murmured as they retired to the drawing-room. "There is a tension here, a web of motives, money, love, perhaps revenge. The little grey cells, they are stirring." Hastings nodded, glancing at the shrouded bridge. "Something's brewing, Poirot. I can feel it." Outside, the amber lights flickered, as if signalling to the night. Unseen by all, the stage was set, and the curtain of fate was about to rise on the Amberlight Bridge. Chapter 2. The Gathering Storm. The morning of the second day at Amberlight Estate broke with a sullen grey dawn, the sky heavy with the promise of rain. The fog that had cloaked the Thames overnight lingered like an uninvited guest, curling around the stone arches of the Amberlight Bridge and softening the glow of its amber lanterns. From the sunroom, where breakfast was laid out, the river murmured secrets beneath the mist, its current sluggish and dark. Hercule Poirot, seated at the long oak table, sipped his coffee, black, no sugar, and observed the assembled company with the precision of a watchmaker. His small, neat figure was immaculate in a charcoal suit, his moustache a perfect crescent above his thoughtful expression. Captain Hastings, ever the optimist, helped himself to kippers and toast, his cheerful demeanour undampened by the gloom. "Quite a morning, Poirot," he remarked, glancing at the windows where the fog pressed close. "This place feels like it's holding its breath." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his green eyes narrowing, "and in such stillness, the little grey cells, they begin to stir. There is tension here, Hastings, motives that weave like threads in a tapestry. We must watch closely." The breakfast table was a microcosm of unease. Lord Reginald Ambrose, robust and commanding despite the early hour, dominated the conversation, his voice booming over the clink of china. He spoke of his latest venture, a proposed railway expansion that would link Eldridge Village to London, with the Amberlight Bridge as a key thoroughfare. "Progress, gentlemen," he declared, brandishing a fork. "The bridge will carry not just people, but prosperity." Lady Evelyn, seated at his side, toyed with her grapefruit, her sapphire earrings catching the dim light. Her face was pale, and her smiles fleeting, as though her thoughts wandered elsewhere. Poirot noted her distracted air, wondering if it stemmed from the rumours of her strained marriage. Whispers of an affection for another, perhaps. Victor Ambrose, the heir, slouched in his chair, his handsome features marred by a scowl. He interrupted his father mid-sentence. "Prosperity, father. Perhaps you could start by settling my accounts. Oxford wasn't cheap, and the creditors are circling." Lord Ambrose's face reddened. "Not now, Victor," he snapped, his moustache bristling. "Business comes first. Your debts can wait." Across the table, Mr. Harold Blackwood, the business partner, adjusted his spectacles and scribbled notes in a leather-bound ledger. His thin lips pursed as he muttered about irregularities in their joint shipping accounts. "Reginald, we must discuss this privately," he said, his voice low but sharp. "There are discrepancies that cannot be ignored." Lord Ambrose waved a dismissive hand. "Later, Blackwood. We've guests to entertain." Miss Clara Thorne, the governess, sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. Her plain dress and severe bun contrasted with the opulence around her, but her sharp eyes missed nothing. She glanced toward the bridge, visible through the window, as if expecting a figure to emerge from the fog. Poirot noted her nervous habit of twisting her handkerchief, a telltale sign of secrets unspoken. Dr. Elias Markham, the physician, sipped tea with a calm that seemed forced. His medical bag rested by his chair, a constant reminder of his profession and perhaps his past. He exchanged a glance with the Lady Evelyn, a subtle gesture of reassurance that did not escape Poirot's notice. Was it friendship or something deeper? Jenkins, the butler, moved silently, refilling coffee and clearing plates. His presence was unobtrusive, yet Poirot sensed he was more than a servant, an observer perhaps, with knowledge of the household's undercurrents. As breakfast ended, the party scattered. Lord Ambrose retreated to his study, Blackwood trailing him with a determined air. Lady Evelyn excused herself, claiming a need for fresh air, though the fog made such a walk unlikely. Victor stormed off toward the stables, muttering about needing a ride to clear his head. Dr. Markham lingered, offering to check on Lady Evelyn's health, while Miss Thorne slipped away to the library, her footsteps quick and purposeful. Poirot and Hastings took the opportunity to stroll the grounds, crossing the Amberlight Bridge to the village side. The cobblestones were slick with mist, and the amber lanterns cast a feeble glow, their light swallowed by the fog. "This bridge, Hastings," Poirot mused, pausing to lean on the parapet. "It is the heart of this mystery, no? A locked gate at each end, yet it feels vulnerable." Hastings nodded, pulling his coat tighter. "It's isolated all right. And with Lord Ambrose's talk of progress, I'd wager there's money and trouble at stake. Victor's debts, Blackwood's accounts. Even Lady Evelyn seems on edge." "Précisément," Poirot said, his eyes scanning the river below. "And Miss Thorne, her silence is loud, is it not? She watches the bridge as if it holds her fate." They returned to the estate as clouds thickened overhead, the air heavy with the scent of rain. In the hall, Poirot paused by a side table, where a crumpled telegram lay half hidden beneath a vase. He unfolded it discreetly, reading, "Meet me tonight, bridge, midnight, urgent. C." "Interesting," he murmured, slipping it into his pocket. "A rendezvous, perhaps?" The afternoon passed in a haze of polite activities. Lord Ambrose hosted a tour of the estate's gardens, though the fog limited visibility. Victor returned from his ride, mud-splattered and sullen. Blackwood and Ambrose argued behind closed doors, their voices muffled but heated. Lady Evelyn and Dr. Markham took tea in the conservatory, their conversation hushed. Miss Thorne remained in the library, poring over old family records, her expression one of quiet desperation. As evening approached, the weather turned. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and rain began to patter against the Hercule windows. The guests gathered for tea in the drawing-room, where the fire cast long shadows. Conversation turned to local legends, prompted by Miss Thorne's hesitant remark. "They say the Amberlight Bridge is cursed," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Centuries ago, a merchant was murdered there, stabbed in a storm. The killer vanished into the mist, never caught." Lord Ambrose laughed, his booming voice cutting through the tension. "Nonsense, Clara. The bridge is as secure as a vault. Jenkins locks the estate gate every night, and the village constable guards the other. No one crosses without my knowledge." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A vault, you say? Yet even vaults have their weaknesses, no?" Dinner that evening was a strained affair. The dining hall, with its high ceilings and flickering candles, felt oppressive as the storm gathered strength outside. Lord Ambrose, perhaps sensing the mood, grew belligerent, accusing Blackwood openly of mismanaging funds. "You've been siphoning profits, Harold," he barked, slamming his fist on the table. "I've seen the ledgers." Blackwood's face paled, but he retorted sharply, "You're mistaken, Reginald. It's your reckless ventures that threaten us both." Victor, emboldened by wine, snapped at his father. "Perhaps if you'd paid my debts, we wouldn't be in this mess." Lady Evelyn rose abruptly, pleading a headache, and Dr. Markham escorted her out, his medical bag in hand. Miss Thorne slipped away unnoticed, her absence marked only by Poirot's keen eye. The storm outside intensified, lightning illuminating the bridge in stark flashes, its amber lanterns swaying in the wind. Poirot retired to his room, but sleep was far from his mind. He sat by the window, watching the bridge through the rain-streaked glass. The telegram weighed heavily in his pocket. "Meet me tonight, bridge midnight. Who was C? And why the bridge, so exposed yet so secure?" Around midnight, as thunder shook the estate, a piercing scream cut through the storm. It came from the direction of the Amberlight Bridge, sharp and desperate, swallowed quickly by the wind. Poirot sprang to his feet, his heart racing. "Hastings!" he called, rousing his friend. "The drama! It has begun!" They hurried downstairs, where Jenkins was already at the door, lantern in hand, his face pale. "It came from the bridge, sir," he stammered. "Something terrible." The household stirred, lanterns flickering as the guests gathered, their faces a mix of fear and suspicion. The storm raged, and the Amberlight Bridge loomed in the darkness, its lanterns casting an eerie glow through the rain. Whatever had happened, Poirot knew the truth lay out there, waiting to be uncovered. Chapter 3. The Fatal Crossing. The scream that shattered the midnight storm at Amberlight Estate lingered in the air like a ghost, pulling the household into chaos. Rain lashed the windows, and thunder rolled as Hercules. Poirot and Captain Hastings hurried down the grand staircase, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous hall. Jenkins, the butler, stood at the open door, his lantern trembling in his hand, his face ashen. "It came from the bridge, sir," he stammered, rain dripping from his coat. "Something dreadful has happened." Poirot, his small frame taut with purpose, adjusted his overcoat and seized a lantern. "Hastings, vite! We must see for ourselves. The truth, it waits in the storm." The guests stumbled into the hall, roused from their beds, their faces a mix of fear and confusion. Lady Evelyn Ambrose, wrapped in a silk shawl, clutched Dr. Elias Markham's arm, her eyes wide with panic. Victor Ambrose, hair dishevelled, fumbled with a cigarette, his hands shaking. Mr. Harold Blackwood, spectacles fogged by the damp, muttered about cursed business, while Miss Clara Thorne hovered at the edge of the group, her face pale and unreadable. Lord Ambrose was conspicuously absent. The party ventured into the tempest, lanterns swaying as wind tore at their coats. The Amberlight Bridge loomed ahead, its stone arches slick with rain, the amber lanterns casting a sickly glow through the thinning fog. Jenkins led the way, unlocking the estate's iron gate with a key from his chain. "I swear, sir," he said to Poirot, "the gate was locked all night. No one passed me." They reached the bridge's midpoint, where the lantern's light revealed a horrific sight. Lord Reginald Ambrose lay sprawled across the cobblestones, his once robust frame crumpled like a discarded puppet. A dagger, its ornate hilt glinting, protruded from his chest, blood pooling around him, diluted by the rain. His eyes stared blankly at the stormy sky, his moustache drooping in death. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot exclaimed, kneeling beside the body, heedless of the wet stone. "An impossible crime, Hastings. Regardez, the bridge, it is locked at both ends, yet here lies death. Hastings, shielding his lantern from the wind, gasped, How, Poirot? No one could have crossed. The gates, Jenkins at one end, the village constable at the other. It's madness. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he examined the scene. The dagger, he noted, was from the estate's study collection, a ceremonial piece, sharp despite its age. The wound was fresh, blood still seeping, suggesting death around midnight, when the scream was heard. Ambrose's footprints led from the estate gate to the body, but no others marred the wet stone. The rain had washed away subtler traces, yet the absence of tracks was itself a clue. Poirot's fingers brushed the cobblestones, finding a single anomaly, a torn cufflink, embossed with a V, half buried in a crevice. Lady Evelyn stifled a sob, leaning heavily on Dr. Markham. "Reginald, who could do this?" Victor stared at the body, his cigarette forgotten, his voice hollow. "Father, gone." Blackwood, clutching his coat, muttered, "I was in my room. I swear, I heard nothing but the storm." Dr. Markham knelt briefly, checking for a pulse, then shook his head. "He's been dead for hours, stabbed straight through the heart." Miss Thorne, silent until now, whispered, "It's the curse of the bridge. It's happened again." Poirot rose, his expression stern. "Non, mademoiselle, this is no curse, but murder. And murder, it leaves traces for the little grey cells to uncover." The village constable, summoned by a servant, arrived panting, confirming the village gate had been locked all night. "No one crossed, sir," he said. "I'd have seen 'em." Poirot's mind raced. A locked bridge, gates secured, no footprints but the victims, a dagger from the house, yet a killer had struck and vanished. He turned to the group, rain dripping from his hat. "We return to the house. The police must be called, but first I, Hercule Poirot, will begin the investigation. No one leaves the estate." Back in the drawing room, the fire did little to warm the chilled atmosphere. Inspector Japp, summoned from London despite the hour, arrived with his usual gruff demeanour. "Poirot, you again? Right, what's this mess? A locked bridge and a dead lord? Sounds like one of your puzzles." Poirot explained the impossibility. Gates locked, no access. Ambrose alone on the bridge, yet stabbed from close range. Japp scratched his chin. "Sounds like a ghost unless you've got a trick up your sleeve." "No ghosts, mon ami," Poirot said. "Only human cunning." Interviews began in the library, where bookshelves loomed like silent witnesses. Lady Evelyn, trembling, claimed she'd been in bed, nursing a headache, alone after Dr. Markham left her room around 11. Her motive? Whispers of an affair with Markham and a desire for Ambrose's fortune, now hers as widow, but her alibi held, unless Markham lied. Victor, pale and defensive, admitted wandering the grounds after dinner, angry over his father's refusal to pay his debts. "I was nowhere near the bridge," he insisted, though his torn cufflink suggested otherwise. Motive, disinheritance and desperation. Blackwood, fidgeting, said he'd been reading in his room, but a wet umbrella in the hall, bearing his initials, hinted he'd been out. Motive, Ambrose's accusations of fraud, threatening his empire. Dr. Markham admitted tending to Lady Evelyn, but claimed he'd returned to his room by 11:30. A vial of sedative in his medical bag raised eyebrows. A potential red herring, or a clue to poison? Motive, an old wartime grudge, perhaps Ambrose's betrayal during their service. Miss Thorne, her voice barely audible, said she'd been in her room, reading. Yet her diary, glimpsed by Poirot on her desk, contained entries of bitterness toward Ambrose. Motive? A rumoured secret? Could she be his unacknowledged daughter, seeking revenge? Jenkins, questioned last, swore he'd stood guard at the estate gate, seeing no one but Ambrose, who'd insisted on crossing alone, citing a private matter. Poirot's eyes narrowed at this, recalling the telegram. Meet me tonight, Bridge, midnight. See. Clues emerged. The cufflink, Victor's, the umbrella, Blackwood's, the vial, Markham's, and the diary, Thorne's. A red herring surfaced, a set of muddy footprints near the village gate, suggesting an intruder, but the constable's insistence on the locked gate dismissed it. Poirot paced, muttering, "The bridge! It is the key! The Amberlights! Perhaps they saw something." He inspected the bridge again at dawn, the storm now a drizzle. The gates remained secure, no secret passages beneath the stone. But one lantern, near the body, bore a faint scratch, a symbol, perhaps a cross, etched into the glass. "Curieux," Poirot murmured. "A signal or an accident?" Hastings, shivering, said, "It's impossible, Poirot. No one could get on or off that bridge unless a boat?" Poirot shook his head. "The river. It is too swift tonight, and no marks of a landing. No. The answer lies in the human heart, and in misdirection." Returning to the house, Poirot gathered the suspects. "This is a crime of logic," he declared. "The killer is among us, and I shall find them. But first, we must understand the why and the how." The household settled into an uneasy silence, the weight of suspicion heavy. Poirot's mind churned, piecing together the telegram, the scream, the locked gates. The amber lights flickered in his memory, their glow a silent witness to murder. The investigation had begun, and the truth, though elusive, was within reach of his little grey cells. Chapter 4. Clues and Red Herrings. The dawn after Lord Reginald Ambrose's murder on the Amberlight Bridge was bleak, the Thames shrouded in a lingering mist that clung to the estate like a mourner's veil. Inside Amberlight Estate, the air was thick with suspicion, the grandeur of its halls dimmed by the shadow of death. Hercule Poirot, his small frame impeccable in a grey suit, stood in the library, his green eyes scanning the shelves as if they held secrets as weighty as the books themselves. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, hovered nearby, his notepad scribbled with details of the night's horror. "Poirot," Hastings said, his voice low, "this locked bridge business, it's baffling. No footprints, gates secured, yet Ambrose was stabbed. It's as if the killer flew." Poirot's moustache twitched. "Non, mon ami. No wings, no ghosts, only cunning. The little grey cells, they see a pattern emerging, but we must separate the truth from the distractions." Inspector Japp, pacing by the fire, snorted. "Distractions? I've got a dead lord, a dagger, and a house full of liars. Give me something solid, Poirot." "Patience, Inspector," Poirot replied, his tone calm but firm. "The solid. It lies in the details. Let us review." The crime scene haunted Poirot's thoughts. Ambrose stabbed at midnight, alone on the bridge, gates locked at both ends, Jenkins at the estate, the constable at the village. The dagger from the study's collection bore no fingerprints, wiped clean by the rain or the killer. The torn cufflink with a V suggested Victor Ambrose, but was it too obvious? The wet umbrella in the hall, initialed HB, pointed to Harold Blackwood. Dr. Markham's sedative vial and Miss Thorne's bitter diary entries added layers, while the telegram, "Meet me tonight, bridge, midnight." C gnawed at Poirot's mind. The scratched lantern, etched with a faint cross, hinted at something deliberate, perhaps a signal. Poirot began his inquiries with renewed focus, summoning the suspects to the drawing-room. The fire crackled, but its warmth did little to ease the tension. Lady Evelyn Ambrose, her eyes red from weeping, sat rigidly, her silk dress a stark contrast to her grief. "I was in my room," she insisted, her voice trembling. "After Elias, Dr. Markham, checked on me. I took a sedative and slept. I heard nothing until the scream." Poirot nodded, noting her mention of Markham. An affair, perhaps, or merely friendship? Her inheritance of Ambrose's fortune was a potent motive, yet her alibi held, unless Markham covered for her. Victor Ambrose, slouched in an armchair, lit a cigarette with unsteady hands. "I told you, I was walking the grounds after dinner. Yes, I argued with father, but I didn't go near the bridge." The cufflink shown to him made him flinch. "That's mine, but I lost it weeks ago. Someone must have planted it." "Curieux," Poirot murmured. "Lost or placed? A debt-ridden son, threatened with disinheritance, has much to gain." Harold Blackwood, spectacles glinting, clutched his ledger like a shield. "I was reading in my room, as I said. That umbrella? I lent it to a servant days ago. It's not mine anymore." His denial of Ambrose's fraud accusations was vehement, but his nervous glances betrayed fear. Motive? To silence Ambrose before exposure ruined him. Dr. Elias Markham, calm but weary, confirmed he'd left Lady Evelyn's room by 11:30. "I checked her pulse, gave her a mild sedative, nothing more." The vial in his bag, he explained, was standard medicine, not poison. Yet Poirot probed deeper, sensing an old wound. "You and Ambrose served together in the Boer War, oui? Was there a betrayal, perhaps, that festers still?" Markham's jaw tightened. "Old history, Monsieur Poirot. We settled our differences years ago." Miss Clara Thorne, pale and withdrawn, clutched her handkerchief. "I was reading in my room," she whispered. Her diary, which Poirot had discreetly glimpsed, revealed venomous entries about Ambrose, hinting she was his unacknowledged daughter, denied her birthright. "I had no reason to harm him," she said, but her eyes avoided Poirot's. Jenkins, questioned in the hall, reiterated his vigil at the estate gate. "Lord Ambrose insisted on crossing alone, said it was a private matter. I saw no one else, sir." Yet Poirot noted Jenkins' calloused hands, unusual for a butler, suggesting manual work, perhaps on the bridge. Clues mounted, but so did distractions. The muddy footprints near the village gate, dismissed as a servant's, re-emerged as a red herring when the constable admitted a delivery boy had passed earlier, unrelated to the crime. Poirot's inspection of the study revealed a missing letter opener, similar to the dagger, suggesting a planned theft. A servant reported seeing a shadow near the bridge before midnight, but the fog obscured details. Was it a person, or merely a trick of light? Poirot returned to the bridge, Hastings and Japp in tow. The rain had stopped, leaving the cobblestones glistening under the amber lanterns. Poirot examined the scratched lantern again, the cross-like mark deliberate, not accidental. "A signal, perhaps," he mused, "or a marker for the killer's plan." Hastings frowned. "But how, Poirot? The gates were locked, no boat could navigate the river's current, and no one saw a soul cross." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Misdirection, mon ami. The killer wishes us to see an impossible crime, but the impossible, it is merely the unseen. Consider the amber lights. They flicker, oui? Perhaps not by chance." He questioned the village constable again, who mentioned an odd detail. The amber lanterns had dimmed briefly around midnight, as if tampered with. A groundskeeper added another clue. A coil of fishing line, tangled in the riverbank's reeds, discarded recently. Poirot's mind whirred. A line, a light, a dagger, pieces of a puzzle, but not yet complete. Back at the estate, Poirot rifled through Ambrose's desk, finding a draft will. It disinherited Victor, favouring a charitable trust, with a codicil naming Lady Evelyn as sole heir. A motive for Victor, or a red herring to obscure another's gain. A cryptic note in Ambrose's handwriting read, "C knows the truth. Midnight, Bridge. Was C Clara Thorne or another?" Poirot gathered the suspects again, his tone sharp. Someone lured Lord Ambrose to his death. The telegram, the lights, the dagger, all planned. But the killer, they have left traces, no? A cufflink too perfect, an umbrella too convenient. We must look deeper. Lady Evelyn gasped. "You think one of us—" "Oui, madame," Poirot said. "The heart of this crime lies in Amberlight, and I shall find it." The day wore on, suspicions deepening. Victor avoided his mother's gaze. Blackwood's ledger entries grew frantic. Markham checked his bag obsessively, while Miss Thorne retreated to her room, her diary now locked away. Jenkins polished silver with unusual intensity, his eyes darting to the bridge. As evening fell, Poirot stood by the window, watching the amber lanterns flicker. "Hastings," he said softly, "the bridge is a stage, and the killer, they have played their part well. But the little grey cells, they do not applaud deception." The investigation deepened, clues and red herrings tangling like the river's currents. The truth was close, but veiled, waiting for Poirot's relentless logic to pierce the fog. Chapter 5. Complications and Twists. The second day at Amberlight Estate dawned under a pall of suspicion, the murder of Lord Reginald Ambrose casting a shadow over the grand halls. The Amberlight Bridge, its stone arches still damp from the previous night's storm, stood silent, its amber lanterns dim in the morning light. Hercule Poirot, his small frame immaculate in a pinstripe suit, stood in the estate's study, his green eyes scanning the room where the murder weapon, a ceremonial dagger, had been taken. Captain Hastings, ever at his side, flipped through his notebook, his brow furrowed. "Poirot," Hastings said, "this case is a tangle. The cufflink, the umbrella, the telegram, and that scratched lantern. Are we chasing ghosts or clues?" Poirot's moustache twitched. "No ghosts, mon ami. The killer, they weave a clever web, but the little grey cells, they see through the threads. We must untangle the truth from the lies." Inspector Japp, nursing a cup of tea, grumbled from a nearby armchair. "I've got 5 suspects, all with motives and a bridge no one could cross. You'd better have a trick, Poirot, or I'm hauling them all to London." "Patience, Inspector," Poirot replied, his tone sharp. "The impossible, it is merely the unseen. Let us deepen our inquiries." The investigation intensified, new complications arising like ripples in the Thames. Poirot revisited the clues, the torn cufflink, Victor's, the wet umbrella, Blackwood's, the sedative vial, Markham's, the bitter diary, Thorne's, and the telegram, "Meet me tonight, Bridge, midnight. C." The scratched lantern, with its cross-like mark, suggested a deliberate act, perhaps a signal. The discarded fishing line in the riverbank hinted at a mechanism, but how? The draft will, disinheriting Victor, and Ambrose's note, "C knows the truth," added layers of intrigue. Poirot summoned the suspects to the drawing-room, their faces taut with unease. Lady Evelyn Ambrose, her morning attire elegant yet sombre, clutched a handkerchief. "I've told you, Monsieur Poirot. I was asleep," she said, her voice wavering. "Elias gave me a sedative, nothing more." But Poirot caught a glance between her and Dr. Markham, hinting at secrets. Motive, inheritance, or an affair? Victor Ambrose, pacing, snapped. "I didn't kill him. Yes, he threatened to cut me off, but that cufflink was stolen from my room." His desperation rang true, yet his late-night wanderings near the bridge were damning. Motive, debts and disinheritance. Harold Blackwood, clutching his ledger, denied leaving his room. The umbrella? A servant borrowed it. But a new clue emerged. A ledger page slipped under Poirot's door, showed forged entries, Blackwood's initials alongside suspicious transactions. Motive? To silence Ambrose's fraud accusations. Dr. Elias Markham, his calm demeanour cracking, admitted checking on Lady Evelyn, but insisted he'd retired early. Poirot pressed him about the sedative vial. "It's harmless," Markham said, producing it. Chemical analysis, arranged by Japp, confirmed it was standard. Yet Markham's wartime grudge against Ambrose surfaced in a letter found in the study, accusing Ambrose of stealing a Medal of Valour. Motive? Revenge for betrayal. Miss Clara Thorne, trembling, reiterated her alibi. "I was in my room, reading." But Poirot, having discreetly borrowed her diary, read entries of rage. "He denies me his own blood." A birth certificate, hidden in her room, confirmed she was Ambrose's illegitimate daughter, unacknowledged. Motive? Rejection and inheritance. Jenkins, the butler, maintained his post at the gate. But a groundskeeper reported seeing Jenkins near the bridge's base earlier, adjusting a lantern. Routine maintenance, Jenkins claimed, but his calloused hands suggested more. A red herring, or a deeper role. New complications arose. A servant, Mary, confessed to overhearing Ambrose and Blackwood arguing about a rival company sabotaging their shipping ventures, a motive beyond fraud. "They mentioned a man named Carver," Mary whispered. Was C. Carver, not Clara? Poirot filed this away, suspecting a twist. The bridge itself yielded more. Poirot, Hastings and Japp inspected it again, finding a hidden notch under the parapet barely visible where the fishing line might have been tied. A device, perhaps, Poirot mused, to pull the dagger or to signal. But the notch was empty. The line gone. A groundskeeper's log noted the lantern's wiring had been tampered with, causing the midnight flicker. Not a storm, but human hands. A twist emerged. A second telegram found in Ambrose's desk read, "Cancel midnight. Danger." E was E. Evelyn, or another. The handwriting didn't match Lady Evelyn's, complicating her alibi. Had Ambrose ignored the warning, lured by the first telegram? Poirot confronted the suspects again, his tone piercing. Someone sent Lord Ambrose to his death. The telegrams, the lights, the dagger, all orchestrated, but the killer, they have overplayed their hand. He produced the ledger page, watching Blackwood pale. "Monsieur Blackwood, these forgeries, yours?" Blackwood stammered. "I was framed. Ambrose was reckless, borrowing against our company." Victor interrupted. "You're lying. You wanted father's shares." A scuffle broke out, stopped by Japp's bark. Lady Evelyn, tearful, admitted knowing of Ambrose's will change. "He told me days ago. I didn't care. I loved him." But her glance at Markham suggested divided loyalties. Markham, provoked, snapped. Ambrose was no hero. "He took my medal, my honour." The letter confirmed his grudge, but his alibi held unless he'd slipped out. Miss Thorne, cornered about her diary, broke down. "He was my father, but he shamed me, cast me aside." Her motive was raw, yet her timid demeanour clashed with a killer's nerve. A second twist. Poirot found a scrap of fabric, blue silk, caught in the bridge's notch. It matched Lady Evelyn's shawl, but she swore she hadn't left her room. A plant, or proof of her presence? The fishing line analysed bore traces of oil, not river mud but mechanical oil, suggesting a device, perhaps a pulley rigged to the lantern. Poirot's mind raced. The bridge, it is a stage of deception. The killer used the storm, the lights, the locked gates to create impossibility. But the truth, it hides in the details. Hastings suggested, could it be a conspiracy? Two working together? Possible, mon ami, Poirot said, but I think one mind, one hand. The telegrams, they conflict. One lures, one warns. Why? As evening fell, Poirot gathered evidence. The ledger, the fabric, the telegrams, the oil-slick line. He questioned Mary again, who recalled seeing a shadow near the bridge. Not a person, but a shape, like a coat hung on a post. A decoy? The lantern's wiring, traced to the estate's shed, pointed to Jenkins' access, deepening his role. The household grew restless, accusations flying. Victor confronted Blackwood. Markham glared at Lady Evelyn, and Miss Thorne locked herself away. Japp, frustrated, muttered, "If you don't crack this soon, Poirot, I'm arresting the lot." Poirot stood by the window, the bridge's lanterns flickering in the dusk. The killer, they are clever, but not cleverer than Hercule Poirot. The web tightens, and soon the truth will emerge. Chapter 6. The Revelation. The third day at Amberlight Estate dawned with a fragile calm, the Thames reflecting a pale sky, its currents whispering secrets beneath the Amberlight Bridge. The murder of Lord Reginald Ambrose had transformed the grand estate into a house of shadows, where every glance carried suspicion. Hercule Poirot, his small frame impeccable in a navy suit, stood in the study, his green eyes fixed on a map of the estate pinned to the wall. The bridge, marked in ink, was the heart of the mystery, an impossible stage for murder. Captain Hastings, flipping through his cluttered notebook, shook his head. "Poirot," Hastings said, "we're drowning in clues. The cufflink, the umbrella, the telegrams, the oiled fishing line, that silk scrap. It's a jumble. Are we closer to the truth, or lost in the fog?" Poirot's moustache curled slightly. "Mon ami, the fog? It clears when the little grey cells align the pieces. We are close, very close, to a revelation. The killer, they have been clever, but not cleverer than Hercule Poirot." Inspector Japp, slumped in a chair, rubbed his temples. "I've got a headache from this. Locked bridge nonsense. 2 telegrams, a rigged lantern, and no one could have crossed. Give me a name, Poirot, or I'm locking up the lot." "Patience, Inspector," Poirot said, his tone sharp but calm. "The truth, it emerges like a star in the dawn. Let us proceed." The clues weighed heavily. The torn cufflink, Victor's, the wet umbrella, Blackwood's, the sedative vial, Markham's but harmless, Miss Thorne's diary revealing her as Ambrose's unacknowledged daughter, and the telegrams, "Meet me tonight, bridge, midnight. See and cancel, midnight. Danger." E. The scratched lantern, its cross-like mark, and the oiled fishing line suggested a mechanical ploy, while the silk scrap, matching Lady Evelyn's shawl, deepened the mystery. The ledger's forged entries and Markham's wartime letter hinted at tangled motives, debts, fraud, betrayal, and revenge. Poirot gathered the suspects in the drawing-room, the fire casting flickering shadows on their tense faces. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, pacing slowly, "the murder of Lord Ambrose was no accident, no curse. It was a plan, precise and cunning, executed on a bridge locked at both ends. But the impossible, it is merely a trick. Let us uncover the how and the who." He started with Lady Evelyn, her mourning gown stark against her pale face. "Madame, the silk scrap. Yours, non? Yet you claim you never left your room." She gasped, clutching her shawl. "I didn't. Someone must have taken it. I was asleep. Elias can confirm." Her eyes darted to Dr. Markham, betraying a closeness that fueled affair rumours. "Motive? inheritance, or freedom from a failing marriage. Victor Ambrose, chain-smoking, snapped, "That cufflink was planted. I was in the gardens, not the bridge." But a servant's testimony placed him near the bridge's base at 11, arguing with a shadowy figure. Motive: disinheritance and debts. Harold Blackwood, spectacles fogged, gripped his ledger. "Those forgeries weren't mine. Ambrose was reckless, borrowing against our company to fund his railway." A new clue emerged. A letter from a rival, Carver, threatening to expose Blackwood unless Ambrose's railway plan was scrapped. Was Carver C? Motive: to silence Ambrose and save his empire. Dr. Elias Markham, his calm fraying, admitted his grudge. "Yes, Ambrose stole my medal in the war, but I forgave him." The sedative vial was cleared, but a new find, a torn photograph in his room, showing him and Ambrose in uniform, Ambrose's face scratched out, suggested lingering rage. Motive: revenge. Miss Clara Thorne, trembling, clutched her diary, now locked. "I hated him, yes, he denied me as his daughter, but I didn't kill him." A maid reported seeing Thorne near the library window at midnight, staring at the bridge. Motive: rejection and inheritance. Jenkins, the butler, insisted he guarded the gate, but the groundskeeper's log noted Jenkins handling lantern, wiring days before, and oil on his hands matched the fishing line. "I maintain the estate, sir," he said. A red herring, or a deeper role. A twist surfaced. Poirot, inspecting Ambrose's desk, found a hidden ledger entry, a payment to C. Thorne for services. Was Clara more than a governess? A confrontation with her revealed a bombshell. Ambrose had paid her to stay silent about her parentage, fearing scandal. "He promised me a share in his will," she sobbed, "but he lied." Her motive deepened, but her frail demeanour clashed with a killer's boldness. Poirot returned to the bridge, Hastings and Japp trailing. The scratched lantern's mark wasn't a cross, but a stylized T etched with a knife. "Thorne?" Hastings whispered. Poirot shook his head. "Or a trap to point to her. Regardez, the fishing line, the oil. A mechanism, perhaps, to stage the impossible." A groundskeeper, hesitant, revealed a new clue. A small pulley, rusted but oiled, hidden in the bridge's alcove, near where the silk scrap was found. The fishing line could have been threaded through it, pulling the dagger or something else. "A decoy," Poirot murmured. "The killer. They made Ambrose appear alone." Another twist. The second telegram's handwriting matched a note in the study, written by Jenkins, not Evelyn. Had Jenkins sent the warning as E? Confronted, he stammered, "I found the first telegram, sir. I tried to stop him, but he insisted on going." His loyalty seemed genuine, but his access to the bridge's wiring raised doubts. Poirot gathered the suspects again, his voice cutting through the tension. "The killer used the bridge's isolation, the storm, the lantern's flicker to create a locked room. But the pulley, the line, the telegrams, they betray a plan. Someone lured Ambrose, and someone warned him." "Why 2 messages?" Lady Evelyn broke, admitting she'd overheard Ambrose mention Carver. "He feared sabotage, but I didn't write that telegram." Her shawl, she claimed, was stolen from her room. Victor, desperate, confessed to meeting a creditor near the bridge, not his father. "I didn't see him die." The cufflink, he swore, was planted by someone in the house. Blackwood, cornered about Carver, admitted, "He threatened me, but I didn't act. Ambrose was the target." The ledger's forgeries, he claimed, were Ambrose's own, masking losses. Markham, provoked, shouted, "Ambrose ruined me, but I didn't touch him." The scratched photograph, he said, was old anger, not murder. Thorne, sobbing, admitted writing bitter diary entries but denied the bridge. "I watched from the window, hoping he'd acknowledge me. I saw nothing." a revelation struck. Poirot, re-examining the pulley, found a faint thread, not fishing line, but silk, matching Evelyn's shawl. The lantern's T wasn't Thorne's initial, but a misdirection to frame her. The killer had rigged the pulley to drop, the dagger from above, using the storm's cover, making it seem Ambrose was alone. The first telegram lured him. The second, a failed attempt to stop him, or a ploy to confuse. Poirot faced the group. The killer is among you. The silk, the pulley, the telegrams, they point to one mind, weaving a tapestry of deceit. But the little grey cells, they see the truth. The room fell silent, eyes darting. Hastings whispered, "Who, Poirot? It's still impossible." "Non," Poirot said. "The impossible is solved when we see the bridge not as a barrier, but as a stage. The killer was there, and they left their mark." The investigation teetered on the edge of truth, the revelation shaking the suspects. The amber lanterns flickering in the dusk held the final clue, waiting for Poirot's genius to illuminate the darkness. Chapter 7. Justice Served. The fourth day at Amberlight Estate broke with a tentative sunrise, the Thames reflecting a pale gold that did little to lift the gloom over the grand halls. The murder of Lord Reginald Ambrose on the locked Amberlight Bridge had turned the estate into a crucible of suspicion, each guest a potential killer. Hercule Poirot, his small frame impeccable in a charcoal suit, stood in the drawing room, his green eyes gleaming with the certainty of truth unveiled. Captain Hastings, clutching his well-worn notebook, stood beside him, his face a mix of anticipation and bewilderment. "Poirot," Hastings said, his voice hushed, "you've got that look. Have you cracked it? The pulley, the silk thread, those telegrams, who's behind it?" Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. "Mon ami, the little grey cells, they have worked tirelessly. The web of deceit is clear, and today justice will be served." The killer, they cannot hide from Hercule Poirot. Inspector Japp, pacing by the fire, snorted, "About time, Poirot. I've got a locked bridge, a dead lord, and a house full of liars. Name the murderer, or I'm dragging them all to the station." "Patience, Inspector," Poirot said, his tone calm but commanding. "The truth, it is a delicate thing, revealed only when all pieces align. Gather the suspects, s'il vous plaît. The stage is set." The clues had piled high. The torn cufflink, Victor's, the wet umbrella, Blackwood's, the harmless sedative vial, Markham's, Miss Clara Thorne's diary exposing her as Ambrose's unacknowledged daughter. The telegrams, "Meet me tonight, bridge, midnight. See and cancel, midnight, danger." And the silk thread in the bridge's pulley, matching Lady Evelyn's shawl. The scratched lantern, marked with a stylized T, and the oiled fishing line suggested a mechanical trick, while the ledger's forgeries and Markham's wartime grudge deepened the motives: inheritance, fraud, betrayal, revenge. Poirot assembled the suspects in the drawing room, the air thick with tension. Lady Evelyn Ambrose, her morning gown, stark, sat rigidly, her eyes darting to Dr. Markham. Victor Ambrose, chain-smoking, leaned against the mantel-saw, his face pale. Harold Blackwood, clutching his ledger, adjusted his spectacles nervously. Dr. Elias Markham, his calm fraying, gripped his medical bag. Miss Clara Thorne, clutching her locked diary, avoided all gazes. Jenkins, the butler, stood by the door, his expression unreadable. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, pacing slowly, "the murder of Lord Ambrose was a masterpiece of deception. Staged on a bridge locked at both ends, an impossible crime, non? But the impossible, it is merely a curtain, and behind it lies the truth. Let us draw it back." He turned to the clues, his voice deliberate. The dagger taken from this study was wiped clean. The cufflink marked V points to Monsieur Victor, but too neatly, oui. The umbrella initialed HB suggests Monsieur Blackwood, yet he claims it was borrowed. The sedative vial, harmless, clears Dr. Markham of poison, but not of grudge. Mademoiselle Thorne's diary reveals a daughter's rage, and the telegrams, one luring, one warning, point to a plan. The silk thread from Madame Evelyn's shawl and the pulley on the bridge suggest a mechanism. But the key, it is the lantern's mark, a T, not for Thorne, but for trickery. Lady Evelyn gasped. "My shawl was stolen! I was in my room, asleep," Victor snapped. "That cufflink was planted. I was in the gardens, not the bridge." Blackwood stammered. "The forgeries weren't mine. Ambrose hid his own losses." Markham, his jaw tight, said, "My grudge was old. I didn't kill him." Thorne, trembling, whispered, "I hated him, but I didn't touch him." Jenkins, silent, shifted uncomfortably as Poirot's gaze lingered. Poirot raised a hand. "Let us reconstruct. Lord Ambrose was lured to the bridge at midnight by the telegram signed C. The second telegram signed E warned him, yet he went. The killer used the storm, the fog, the locked gates to stage an impossible crime. But the pulley, the silk thread, the oiled line, they reveal the how." He paced, his voice rising. "The killer rigged a pulley in the bridge's alcove, hidden by fog. The silk thread tied to the dagger was threaded through, dropped from above to stab Ambrose, making it seem he was alone. The lantern's flicker, caused by tampered wiring, signalled the moment. The T mark was misdirection, to point to Mademoiselle Thorne." A murmur rippled through the room. Hastings whispered, "But who, Poirot?" Poirot turned to Jenkins. "Monsieur Jenkins, you guarded the gate, oui? Yet your hands, they bear oil matching the fishing line. You handled the lanterns days before, and the second telegram, its handwriting is yours. You warned Ambrose, but why?" Jenkins paled. I found the first telegram in his study. I feared for him, so I sent a warning. But I didn't kill him, sir." Poirot nodded. "I believe you. Your loyalty is true, but your access aided another." He faced the group, his eyes piercing. "The killer is Mademoiselle Clara Thorne." Gasps erupted. Thorne's eyes widened, her diary falling to the floor. "No, I couldn't," Poirot continued, relentless. "You, mademoiselle, are Ambrose's daughter, denied your birthright. Your diary burns with rage, and the payment in his ledger, C. Thorne, was your blackmail, threatening to expose him. You sent the first telegram, luring him to the bridge. You knew the estate's secrets, the alcove's pulley from childhood games. You stole Madame Evelyn's shawl, threading its silk to frame her. You scratched the lantern with a T, knowing we'd suspect you, then dismiss you as too obvious. The fishing line, oiled from the shed you accessed, pulled the dagger. You crossed via a servant's path, hidden in fog, and returned unseen." Thorne sobbed, collapsing. "He shamed me. He promised a share, then wrote me out. I wanted justice." Poirot's voice softened. "Justice, mademoiselle, is not vengeance. You killed a man, and now the law will judge you." Japp stepped forward, cuffs in hand. "Clara Thorne, you're under arrest." She offered no resistance, tears streaming as she was led away. Poirot turned to the others, explaining. The cufflink was Victor's, yes, but stolen from his room to mislead. The umbrella Blackwood's was used by a servant, irrelevant. The sedative cleared Markham, and his grudge was old. Madame Evelyn's shawl was a frame, her affair no motive for murder. The telegrams, Clara sent the first, Jenkins the second, trying to save his master. The pulley, the thread, the lantern's flicker. all Clara's design, using the storm's cover. Hastings shook his head. Brilliant, Poirot. But how did you know? The little grey cells, mon ami, Poirot said, tapping his temple. They see the pattern, the rage of a daughter scorned, the cunning of a plan too perfect. Lady Evelyn, trembling, thanked Poirot. You've saved us from ruin. Victor, subdued, muttered, I didn't deserve him, but I didn't kill him. Blackwood, relieved, clutched his ledger. The company's safe now. Markham quietly said, Perhaps I can forgive him now. As Japp escorted Thorne to the police car, the estate settled into a heavy silence. The bridge's amber lanterns glowed steadily, their secrets unveiled. Justice had been served, and Amberlight, though scarred, could begin to heal. Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart, the case closed. A sad affair, Hastings, Poirot said, gazing at the bridge, but the truth, it always finds the light. Chapter 8. The Twist in the Tale. The 5th day at Amberlight Estate brought a fragile stillness, the Thames shimmering under a pale morning sun, its currents no longer whispering of murder, but of secrets yet to be fully unveiled. The revelation of Miss Clara Thorne as Lord Reginald Ambrose's killer had shaken the household, yet Hercule Poirot, his small frame impeccable in a dove-grey suit, sensed the puzzle was not entirely solved. In the library, surrounded by towering bookshelves, his green eyes gleamed with the intensity of a man who knew one final twist awaited. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, stood by the window, gazing at the Amberlight Bridge, its amber lanterns now steady in the daylight. Poirot, Hastings said, his voice tinged with unease. Clara's confession tied it all up. The pulley, the silk thread, the telegrams. But you're not satisfied, are you? There's something more. Poirot's moustache twitched. Mon ami, the little grey cells, they protest when the picture is too neat. Clara Thorne is guilty, oui. But the stage of this crime, it holds one more secret. We must look again. Inspector Japp, nursing a cigar, grumbled from a leather chair. You've got your killer, Poirot. Thorne's in cuffs, headed for trial. What's left? Don't tell me you're chasing shadows now. Non, Inspector, Poirot replied, his tone sharp. Shadows, they cast light on truth. The bridge, the lanterns, the telegrams, they tell a story, but not the whole story. Let us uncover the final act. The clues, meticulously gathered, painted a vivid scene. The torn cufflink, Victor's stolen, the wet umbrella, Blackwood's borrowed, the sedative vial, Markham's harmless, Clara Thorne's diary revealing her as Ambrose's scorned daughter, the telegrams, meet me tonight, bridge, midnight. See and cancel, midnight, danger. E, the silk thread from Lady Evelyn's shawl, and the oiled fishing line tied to a pulley, rigged to drop the dagger. The lantern's T-mark, meant to frame Clara, then exonerate her, was her own misdirection. Her confession, tearful and raw, seemed to close the case. She lured Ambrose with the first telegram, used the servant's path to bypass the locked gates, and rigged the pulley to stab him, framing Lady Evelyn with the silk. Yet Poirot's unease persisted. The second telegram, signed E, and written by Jenkins, hinted at an accomplice, or a deeper motive. Why warn Ambrose if Clara's plan was set? Poirot summoned the household to the drawing-room, the fire casting long shadows on their strained faces. Lady Evelyn, her morning attire elegant, sat with clasped hands. Victor Ambrose, subdued, avoided eye contact. Harold Blackwood, clutching his ledger, adjusted his spectacles. Dr. Elias Markham, his calm restored, leaned back, his medical bag at his side. Jenkins stood by the door, his loyalty now tinged with scrutiny. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, pacing slowly. Mademoiselle Thorne has confessed. Oui, but the little grey cells, they question the simplicity. The murder on the Amberlight Bridge was a masterpiece, but was it the work of one hand alone? Let us examine. He turned to Jenkins. You sent the second telegram, warning Lord Ambrose. Why? Jenkins shifted, his calloused hands twitching. I found the first telegram in his study, sir. I feared for his safety. Someone meant him harm. I sent the warning, hoping he'd stay inside, but he went anyway. Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. And you, Monsieur Jenkins, had access to the lanterns, the shed, the oil. Did you know of Mademoiselle Thorne's plan? Jenkins paled. No, sir. I swear I only wanted to protect him. Poirot turned to the group. The pulley, the silk, the dagger, all point to Clara. But the second telegram, it complicates. Why warn unless another knew of danger? A twist emerged. Poirot, revisiting Ambrose's desk, found a hidden letter, sealed and addressed to C. Thorne. It read, Your secret is safe, but no more demands. The will stands. The handwriting matched Ambrose's, suggesting Clara's blackmail had pushed him to a breaking point. But another document surfaced, a map of the bridge, annotated with timings for the lantern's flicker, in a different hand. Poirot recognized it, Dr. Markham's. Dr. Markham, Poirot said, producing the map. You knew of the bridge's wiring, oui? This map, it plots the lantern's tampering. Did you aid Mademoiselle Thorne? Markham's calm shattered. That's preposterous. I drew that for Ambrose, months ago, for his railway plans. The lanterns were to signal workers. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Yet the flicker aided the murder. A coincidence or design? A new clue surfaced. A servant, Mary, reported seeing Markham near the bridge 2 nights before the murder, inspecting the alcove where the pulley was found. He was measuring something, she whispered. Markham, confronted, admitted checking the bridge for structural issues at Ambrose's request. The railway needed a stable crossing, he said. But his scratched photograph, Ambrose's face-to-face, suggested deeper resentment. Poirot turned to Lady Evelyn. Madame, your shawl's silk was used to frame you. Yet you knew of Ambrose's will change, oui? Did you suspect Clara's secret? Lady Evelyn's eyes widened. I knew he had a past indiscretion, but I never thought she'd kill him. My shawl was in my room, I swear it. Victor, quiet until now, muttered, Clara hated him. I saw her in the library reading old family records. She was obsessed. Blackwood, defensive, added, She asked me about Ambrose's finances. Said it was for the estate. I thought nothing of it. A second twist struck. Poirot, re-examining the pulley, found a faint inscription on its rim. A date, 2 years prior, matching a repair log signed by Jenkins and Markham. The pulley wasn't new. It was part of the bridge's maintenance, known to both men. Had Clara exploited their knowledge, or had one helped her rig it? Poirot faced the group, his voice rising. The murder was Clara's, oui, but the stage was set with help. Someone knew of the pulley, the lanterns, the servant's path. The second telegram, Jenkins' warning, was no accident. It was meant to fail, to deepen the mystery. He turned to Markham. You, Doctor, had motive. Ambrose's betrayal in the war, stealing your honour. You knew the bridge's mechanics. Did you guide Clara, knowing her rage? Markham stood, furious. I did no such thing. I despised Ambrose, yes, but I didn't kill him. Poirot paused, then softened. No, you did not. But your map, your presence at the bridge, it gave Clara the tools. She used you, as she used Jenkins' loyalty. The revelation crystallized. Clara acted alone, but her plan leveraged the household secrets. She studied Markham's map, stole Evelyn's shawl, used Jenkins' oil, and planted Victor's cufflink. The second telegram sent by Jenkins was her miscalculation. She hadn't anticipated his interference, which nearly derailed her trap. The T mark was her final flourish, a taunt to frame then exonerate herself. Poirot addressed the room. Clara Thorne, she wove a tapestry of deceit, using your knowledge, your possessions, your motives. The bridge, it was her stage, the storm her curtain. But the little grey cells, they see through the act. Lady Evelyn wept softly. She was family. How could she? Victor, subdued, said, I should have seen her pain. Blackwood muttered, She nearly ruined us all. Markham, shaken, clutched his bag. I gave her the means, unwittingly. Jenkins, head bowed, whispered, I failed my master. Poirot's voice was firm. The guilt is Clara's alone. She's in custody, and justice prevails. But let this be a lesson. The heart's secrets, they breed tragedy. As the household dispersed, the bridge's lanterns glowed steadily, their role in the crime exposed. Poirot and Hastings prepared to leave, the case nearly closed. A clever girl, Hastings, Poirot said, gazing at the Thames. But cleverness without conscience, it is a dangerous thing. Chapter 9. The Final Confrontation. The sixth day at Amberlight Estate dawned with a sombre clarity. The Thames reflecting a cold, clear sky, its currents no longer hiding secrets, but bearing witness to a tragedy resolved. The revelation of Miss Clara Thorne, as Lord Reginald Ambrose's killer, had shaken the household. Yet Hercule Poirot, his small frame impeccable in a black suit, stood in the drawing-room, his green eyes burning with the certainty of a man who had unravelled a masterpiece of deceit. Captain Hastings, ever at his side, stood by the window, gazing at the Amberlight Bridge, its amber lanterns glowing faintly in the morning light. "Poirot," Hastings said, his voice a mix of awe and unease. "Clara's confession, the pulley, the silk thread, it's all so intricate. But you're still pacing. Is there more to this?" Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. "Mon ami, the little grey, cells, they are satisfied, yet the heart demands a final reckoning. Clara Thorne's crime is clear, but we must face her, confront the truth, and lay this mystery to rest." Inspector Japp, leaning against the mantel, lit a cigar. "You've got your killer, Poirot. Thorne's in custody, and her trial's set. What's left? Don't tell me you're digging for another twist." "No, Inspector," Poirot replied, his tone calm but resolute. "The twist is done. But justice, it requires clarity, a confrontation to expose the heart of this crime. Gather the household, s'il vous plaît. The curtain falls today." The clues, meticulously pieced together, formed a vivid tapestry. The torn cufflink, Victor's stolen, the wet umbrella Blackwood's borrowed, the harmless sedative vial, Markham's, Clara Thorne's diary, revealing her as Ambrose's unacknowledged daughter, the telegrams, "Meet me tonight, bridge, midnight. See and cancel, midnight, danger." The silk thread from Lady Evelyn's shawl, and the oiled fishing line tied to a pulley, rigged to drop the dagger. The lantern's T-mark, a misdirection to frame then exonerate Clara, was her own design. Her confession admitted luring Ambrose with the first telegram, using a servant's path to bypass locked gates, and rigging the pulley to stab him, framing Lady Evelyn. Jenkins's second telegram, a failed warning, was her miscalculation, leveraging Markham's map and the household's secrets. Yet Poirot sought a final confrontation, not for doubt, but to lay bare the motives and missteps. He summoned the household to the drawing-room, the fire casting long shadows on their strained faces. Lady Evelyn Ambrose, her morning gown elegant but heavy, sat with clasped hands. Victor Ambrose, subdued, stood by the hearth, his cigarette unlit. Harold Blackwood, clutching his ledger, adjusted his spectacles nervously. Dr. Elias Markham, his calm restored, sat with his medical bag at his feet. Jenkins, the butler, stood by the door, his loyalty now tinged with guilt. Clara Thorne, brought from custody under Japp's guard, stood pale and defiant, her eyes burning with a mix of shame and rage. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, pacing slowly. The murder of Lord Ambrose was a crime of cunning, staged on the locked Amberlight Bridge, an impossible act, not? But the impossible is merely a veil, and behind it lies Mademoiselle Clara Thorne's vengeance. Let us face the truth together. He turned to Clara, his voice steady. Mademoiselle, you confessed, but let us understand. You are Lord Ambrose's daughter, denied your birthright. The ledger's payment, C. Thorne, was his hush money, oui? You blackmailed him, threatening scandal, but he refused your share in his will. Clara's voice trembled. He shamed me, cast me aside as a governess. I was his blood, but he gave me nothing but lies. Poirot nodded. So you planned his death. The first telegram signed C lured him to the bridge. You knew the servant's path, hidden by fog from your years here. You stole Madame Evelyn's shawl, threading its silk through the pulley to frame her. The fishing line, oiled from Jenkins' shed, dropped the dagger. The lantern's T-mark was your taunt, to point to yourself, then mislead us. Clara's eyes flashed. I wanted him to suffer as I did. He deserved it. Lady Evelyn gasped, tears falling. Clara, how could you? I treated you as family. Poirot turned to her. Madam, your shawl was stolen, your innocence clear. But you knew of Ambrose's indiscretion, oui? Did you suspect Clara's pain? Lady Evelyn nodded, voice breaking. I knew he had a past, but I never thought she'd kill him. I thought my love could heal this house. Victor, his voice low, said, I saw her bitterness, but I was too caught up in my own troubles. Father's will, disinheriting me, blinded me. Poirot faced Victor. Your cufflink, stolen from your room, was Clara's misdirection. Your debts, your arguments, they made you a perfect scapegoat. Victor hung his head. I wasn't a good son, but I didn't kill him. Blackwood, clearing his throat, said, She asked about our finances, said it was for the estate. I didn't know she was digging for leverage. Poirot nodded. Monsieur Blackwood, your ledger's forgeries were Ambrose's, not yours, to hide his losses. Clara used your feud, planting the umbrella to cast suspicion. Blackwood exhaled. She nearly ruined me. Dr. Markham, his jaw tight, spoke up. My map of the bridge. It was for Ambrose's railway, not murder. I despised him for stealing my honour, but I didn't help her. Poirot's eyes softened. No, Doctor, you were used. Your map gave Clara the lantern's wiring, the pulley's place. Your grudge made you a shadow suspect. Jenkins, head bowed, whispered, I sent the second telegram signed E, to warn him. I found her note and feared the worst. I failed him. Poirot placed a hand on his shoulder. Your loyalty was true, Monsieur Jenkins. Clara counted on your warning failing, deepening the mystery. A final piece clicked. Poirot produced a small sketch, found in Clara's room, showing the bridge's alcove and pulley, annotated with timings. This, mademoiselle, was your plan drawn months ago. You studied the estate, the lanterns, the storm's cover. You alone wove this web. Clara's defiance broke, tears streaming. I wanted justice, not murder. He left me nothing, nothing but shame. Poirot's voice was firm. "Justice is not vengeance, mademoiselle. Your pain does not excuse a life taken. The law will decide your fate." Japp stepped forward, his tone gruff but respectful. "Clara Thorne, you'll face trial in London. Come quietly now." As Clara was led away, the household fell silent, the weight of truth settling. Lady Evelyn wept. Markham offered her a handkerchief, and Victor stared at the floor. Blackwood clutched his ledger, relief mingling with guilt. Jenkins, eyes downcast, polished a candlestick absently. Poirot addressed the group. This tragedy, it was born of secrets, family, honour, greed. The Amberlight Bridge, it bore the weight of Clara's rage, but now it stands clear. Let it be a lesson. Truth, it always finds the light. Hastings, awestruck, said, "You saw it all, Poirot. The silk, the pulley, her heart. How?" "The little grey cells, mon ami," Poirot replied, tapping his temple. "They see the human soul, its pain and its deceit." As the sun climbed, the bridge's lanterns dimmed, their role in the crime exposed. The estate, though scarred, began to breathe again. Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart, their work done. "A sad tale, Hastings," Poirot said, gazing at the Thames, "but the truth, it brings peace, even to a house of shadows." Chapter 10. Resolution and Explanation. The 7th day at Amberlight Estate dawned with a serene clarity. The Thames sparkling under a crisp autumn sun, its currents flowing freely as if cleansed of the tragedy that had gripped the estate. The Amberlight Bridge, its stone arches steadfast, stood silent, its amber lanterns glowing softly, no longer witnesses to murder, but symbols of a truth unveiled. Hercule Poirot, his small frame impeccable in a tailored overcoat, stood in the grand hall, his green eyes reflecting a quiet satisfaction. The murder of Lord Reginald Ambrose had been solved, Miss Clara Thorne unmasked as the killer, and the household, though scarred, was ready to heal. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, stood beside him, his notebook tucked away, a faint smile on his face. "Poirot," Hastings said, his voice warm, "you've done it again. Clara's plan, the pulley, the silk, the telegrams, it was devilishly clever. But how did you see through it all?" Poirot's moustache curled with a modest smile. "Mon ami, the little grey cells, they see the human heart, its pain, its deceit, its truth. The bridge, it was a stage, and Clara, she played her part too well. But now, we explain, we resolve, and we depart." Inspector Japp, adjusting his hat, joined them, his gruff demeanour softened by relief. "You've saved my neck, Poirot. Thorne's in London, trial pending, but I want the full story, every detail for the report." "Bien sûr, Inspector," Poirot said, gesturing to the drawing-room. "Let us gather the household one last time, to lay this tragedy to rest." The clues, meticulously woven, had formed a tapestry of deception. The torn cufflink, Victor's stolen, the wet umbrella, Blackwood's borrowed, the harmless sedative vial, Markham's, Clara Thorne's diary, revealing her as Ambrose's unacknowledged daughter. The telegrams, "Meet me tonight, bridge, midnight. See and cancel, midnight. Danger. The silk thread from Lady Evelyn's shawl and the oiled fishing line tied to a pulley, rigged to drop the dagger." The lantern's T-mark was Clara's misdirection, framing then exonerating herself. Her confession, raw with rage, admitted luring Ambrose, bypassing the locked gates via a servant's path, and rigging the pulley to stab him, using the storm's cover. Jenkins' warning telegram, her miscalculation, had deepened the mystery, while Dr. Markham's bridge map and the household secrets fueled her plan. Poirot gathered the household in the drawing-room. the fire casting a warm glow on their weary faces. Lady Evelyn Ambrose, her mourning attire softened by a pale scarf, sat with quiet dignity. Victor Ambrose, his defiance gone, leaned against the wall, his eyes sombre. Harold Blackwood, ledger in hand, sat upright, his spectacles glinting. Dr. Elias Markham, his calm restored, rested his medical bag on the floor. Jenkins the butler stood by the door, his loyalty now tempered by regret. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and deliberate, "the murder of Lord Ambrose was a crime of passion and precision, staged on the Amberlight Bridge. A locked room, non? But the impossible, it is merely a trick, and Mademoiselle Clara Thorne was its architect. Let us unravel the how and why, so that peace may return." He paced, hands clasped behind his back. Lord Ambrose was lured to the bridge by a telegram signed C. Clara Thorne. She knew his secret. She was his daughter, born of an indiscretion, denied her birthright. The ledger's payment to C. Thorne was his attempt to buy her silence, but his refusal to include her in his will fueled her rage. She planned for months, using the estate's secrets. Poirot turned to Lady Evelyn. "Madam, your shawl's silk thread was stolen to frame you. Clara knew of your strained marriage, perhaps your closeness to Dr. Markham, making you a perfect suspect." Lady Evelyn nodded, tears in her eyes. "I suspected his past, but I never imagined her hatred. I thought I could mend this family." Poirot faced Victor. "Monsieur Victor, your cufflink stolen from your room was placed to cast suspicion. Your debts, your arguments, they made you a scapegoat." Victor's voice was low. "I was a fool, but not a killer. I wish I'd seen her pain." To Blackwood, Poirot said, "Your ledger's forgeries were Ambrose's, hiding his losses. Clara planted your umbrella, knowing your feud with him would draw scrutiny." Blackwood exhaled. "She used my fears against me. I'm cleared, but at what cost?" Poirot turned to Markham. "Doctor, your map of the bridge, drawn for Ambrose's railway, gave Clara the lantern's wiring and pulley's location. Your wartime grudge, Ambrose stealing your medal, made you a shadow suspect." Markham's jaw tightened. "I gave her the means unwittingly. My anger was old, not deadly." To Jenkins, Poirot said, "Your loyalty led you to send the second, telegram signed E, to warn Ambrose. You found Clara's note and feared danger, but she counted on his stubbornness." Jenkins bowed his head. "I failed him, sir. I should have stopped him." Poirot raised a hand. "No, the guilt is Clara's alone. Her plan was meticulous. She used the servant's path, known from her childhood, to bypass the locked gates. She stole the dagger from this study, threaded the silk through the pulley, hidden in the bridge's alcove, and oiled the fishing line to drop the dagger, using the storm's cover. The lantern's T-mark was her flourish, to point to herself, then mislead us. The second telegram, your warning, was her error. She didn't expect interference." He paused, his voice softening. "Clara's rage, born of rejection, drove her to murder. She leveraged your secrets, Evelyn's marriage, Victor's debts, Blackwood's finances, Markham's grudge, Jenkins's access, to weave a web of misdirection. The Amberlight Bridge, it was her stage, the storm her curtain." Lady Evelyn whispered, "Could we have saved her?" Poirot shook his head. "Her heart chose vengeance, madame. But your family, it endures. The will, now yours, secures the estate." Victor stepped forward. "I'll make amends, sell my cars, pay my debts, for father." Blackwood nodded. "The company's safe. I'll rebuild, honestly." Markham sighed. "I'll let go of the past. Ambrose is gone, but so is my anger." Jenkins, eyes misty, said, "I'll serve this house, as always." Poirot addressed them all. "This tragedy, It was born of secrets, family, honor, greed. Let it teach you. Truth. It heals, even when it wounds. The bridge stands no longer cursed, but a reminder of what must not be. As the household dispersed, the air felt lighter, the scars beginning to fade. Poirot and Hastings walked to the bridge, the Thames sparkling below. "A sad affair, Hastings," Poirot said, gazing at the amber lanterns. "But the little grey cells, they bring order to chaos." Hastings smiled. "You're a marvel, Poirot. The bridge looks peaceful now." "Oui," Poirot replied. "It is merely stone and light, but it carries the weight of truth." They boarded their car, the estate receding as they crossed the bridge. Amberlight, though touched by tragedy, would endure, its lanterns glowing steadily, a beacon of resolution in a world of shadows.